feels weird, like starting that loop. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hello, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. You're listening to Panacea on CKUT 90.3 FM. We're back in the studio. It's me
and Maïa.
And today we're joined by two very special guests, Shayne and Paulo. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hi. Hello. This is Shayne, by the way.
I'm Paulo.
We're recording from the PCR. We're pre-recording today. And they're going to play some drums for us, and I didn't finish writing the intro, so we're also going to talk about the psychology of music and their experiences as drummers.
Dun, dun,
dun, dun, dun. So now they're going to drum for us. Woo!
Move your body. 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 Move your body.
Okay, cool.
Hold on, I got this.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much. This room full of people.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a huge audience in the PCR
Studio
right now. That's
audience.
what's happening.
Is that a record deal I see? Is someone giving us a contract?
So, do you want to introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are. What do you do, if it's not obvious already, and like how you got into drumming?
Okay, cool. My stage name is Paulo Max Riccardo, and I'm a drummer. I've been playing drums, I guess, professionally for a few years now, and I studied at school at Vanier and at McGill, and I play with a lot of Montreal local artists, some touring artists. I teach drums, and I live and breathe music, and music is super fun, and that's basically it. Yay! Your turn.
Do you want to say how you started?
How did I start? Oh man, it's true. Okay, I started in elementary school playing, and it was actually crazy. It was like Guitar Hero when they used to make like drum sets. I started on that. I kind of fell in love with it from that, and then like I was like, this is like, because the Guitar Hero drum sets were actually like playing drums. Those are actually electric drum sets, and then I quickly transitioned to real drum set after being like, oh, I know how to kind of do this, and I took some lessons, and then I knew how to do it a little better than I did before. Been drumming ever since.
Whoa.
Yay!
Beautiful. Okay, I love that. Hi, my name is Shayne. My stage name and government name is Shayne on drums.
Government name.
And that's what I go by, what I prefer to go by. And I have been playing professionally also for quite a few years, probably close to 10 years now. Yeah, I think my first actual paid gig was like around my 18th birthday. So yeah, about 10 years. I also play for many local artists, touring artists, a few international artists this summer. I'm going to be playing with all around Quebec and Canada. And I also host jam sessions and events around the city, particularly Grove, Montreal, every Wednesday at Turbo House. Am I allowed to, okay, I'm allowed to advertise that? Okay, sick. So, yeah, I also started in elementary school, but I was more into like the rock band. And I got, I had like 100% on all the difficulties on that game. And I remember before that game came out, I like went to sleepaway camp, and I was really big into like basketball at the time. So every day I would like do the basketball thing. One day they came up to me and they're like, "Hey Shayne, we need to let other kids play basketball. So I think we're gonna put you in the music room." And I was so upset about it. They brought me to the like music shack, and they made me try a bunch of instruments like guitar, and I was like, "No, I hate this." And then piano and all this stuff. And finally they brought me and this other kid who was also knocked down to the back room, and there was a drum set, and the instructor got up and played a beat, and the other kid looked at him and said, "Oh, okay, cool," and got up and did the beat. And then I got up and I couldn't play it, and I was super competitive at the time. So I went back to the shed. There was a literal music shed. I went back there every day for like 2 weeks until I could get the beat down. And then I go to grade 6 the year after. I get rock band, and I found out some other kid in my school also started playing drums, and I was just like not down to be worse than him. So that's kind of how I started in this whole thing.
Man, that for me when I was in elementary school, it was also a competition thing too.
Yeah.
There was someone who bullied me who played drums, and I tried to be better than him.
You can't let that happen.
No, he doesn't play drums anymore.
Well, okay, now you can bully him.
Maybe I can.
I don't know if we should be supporting
No,
live.
of course not.
But that definitely sounds a lot like the movie.
Fuck that kid.
Yeah, no, he was not a good kid.
No, yeah, this sounds like those movie like coming of age things, like the day I found drums, like oh my
Yes,
gosh,
definitely.
everything changed.
Yep.
But yeah, so like after having like discovered drumming at such a young age, what would you? I mean, very big question, but what would you say like drumming means to you now that you're like professional drummers and like doing it on your
go
day-to-day?
first?
Yeah. That's a huge question.
Yeah,
And
sorry. You can,
no, it's
you can
okay.
break it apart if needed.
It's okay.
You knew it was coming.
I think drumming to me means like comfort and security. The thing I know I'm always gonna be like, it's always there. And you know, for me, it's like it's a sort of outlet, many different ways. It also means like Paulo said, like living and breathing music. Like I think that's a real thing, and I kind of live drums and rhythm. So you know, to me it's like love and life and money and food and rent and heat, and it's all of the above all at the same time. It's really everything that I do and am. So
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you said. Being that we're both working drummers, all these things apply. For me, it also means peace, and it means meditation. I'm really at peace with this instrument, where it's like I could just work on being my genuine self, and the instrument will accept that. And even if it's like a bad day, it's like so honest, and it's like it's so giving that it's just dope. It's just all good. Yeah, I'm nothing more to add really, but just peace.
No, I think that's really cool, and I especially like when you look at like the word drumming. It's also like, for example, used to describe stuff that just happens in nature, like the sound of like rain falling, is like drumming.
Do people say drumming?
Yeah.
The sound of the oval window. Against your
psychological,
ear.
some psychological. Yeah, you guys know you've got like little bones in your ears called ossicles that basically like amplify. Yeah, they basically drum and amplify. So you've got your own little drums in your head as well. But yeah, so I think like when you say like we live and breathe drumming, everyone, like even if you're not musical, you kind of do, because you'll hear it, it's in you, like.
Well, yeah, I kind of always talk about this, but I always find that drumming and singing are the most like instinctive primal instruments, right? They're both instruments where like these drums in front of Paulo and I are really just one outlet, but we could drum on anything. You know, if you ask a piano player or a guitarist to kind of play their instrument without their instrument present, it's not really possible. But Paulo and I kind of just can make music happen on any surface. And it's very like I said, primal, caveman. I'm always saying like very ooga booga. It's like kind of a thing I always refer to. And that's how I think of myself. I'm kind of just going through life in this really primal way. So, yeah, that's my statement.
It's like, it's very much so. Drums were like one of the first instruments ever created. Like for like, we were talking about this previously, but like, it's like used to be used for communication, and they used like animal skins and bones, and it was just like the loudest thing they had at the time to reach long distances. And then it's like, you know, there's tribal and like religious scenarios where they use drums and stuff.
In war.
Yeah, in war for sure. And like, you know, during war times they even made drums louder, like cymbals, and they made snare drums so they would frighten the enemy or like encourage the soldiers.
That's what I'm trying to do when I play, I think.
Frighten
I'm just trying
your
to
enemy?
frighten everybody. I really want to get that emotion out of them. But I feel that like and maybe that's why we're like so competitive when we were younger, because it was such a primal thing, you know? Because it's like if you see someone who's better, quote unquote, better than you at drums, it's like it kind of hurts on the inside a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like they're a better person than me, maybe. And it's, I mean, obviously, I think we've both grown past that point now.
Yes.
But now when I see someone better than me at drums, I'm like, oh my God, you're a god, you know? And I like, you know, I sweat and stuff. But I'm no longer like angry at the situation. But I think that really like is what brought me to where I am today. It's this sort of like drive to be better, you know? So, yeah.
And you don't want to be better anymore? You're just done.
I'm actually just really happy like where I'm at.
That's great.
Yeah, I find
an on-purpose plateau.
Yeah, there you go.
Intentional plateau.
An intentional plateau.
Mm-hmm.
You have to plateau in drums so that you can peak in chess.
Yeah,
That's what they say.
It's true.
That's true. That is happening.
Yes.
True.
Okay, so you said that drumming is like very obviously integral to your identity, and when you're younger, like being bad at drumming can maybe mean like maybe you're a bad person. Obviously that's not true, but like when your whole identity is tied to something like drumming, obviously you can feel that way. So now that you're a professional drummer and you get paid for what you do, how is it different from like drumming as a profession versus drumming as a hobby, and like how does that affect your creativity? If so.
Yeah, no, of course. Drumming as a profession, now, like the difference between drumming as like a, I guess, amateur or like a kid versus profession is that now there's like money and your livelihood involved. So it's like we always have to kind of be grinding and pushing forward our careers and like having a PR image, because, you know, as soon as we stop doing that, we stop getting work, and then we can't pay for things like food and rent. So, you know, when creativity is involved, sometimes you take a lot of work that kind of sucks the creativity out of you, and you don't always say yes to things that you want to do. Sometimes you say yes to things you have to do. But there's still those moments of like beauty, because you'll be with your friends and you're all growing together, and because you're all professionals, you're all taking it seriously. So like, you know, it could be intense, it could be hard, but at the same time it could be very beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of same. I don't know. I feel like you really said the whole thing.
I don't know.
But it's very true. I mean, I feel blessed, and when I get inspired in a way where I want to play drums for fun. I mean, I do play drums for fun, and I practice every day. But like Paulo said, it's mostly with a professional mindset of like, oh, I have this thing coming up. I have to learn all this material. Mm-hmm. But in those moments when I feel super inspired and I want to get behind the kit and just learn things completely unrelated to the job, just for myself, those are when I'm happiest. There's something to be said about the whole professional thing too, where, yeah, I find that a lot of the times the highest paying opportunities are almost the least creative opportunities. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that really hurts on the inside, because, you know, we talk about playing drums. I got this from this book called Free Play, but, you know, we talk about playing music and we forget the word play is involved. It's supposed to be playful and fun, and, you know, and when it's not, it really makes you think, like, is this what I want to do? Is it meant for me? And that hurts the most, because, I mean, honestly, if I wouldn't do anything else, I don't know what else I would get into.
We're too locked into
this. We're too locked in, so maybe I'd work at like Walmart or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting, because from like a whole psych perspective, we study something called over-justification theory. So I'm just going to debunk this word right now before I get into it. But basically, it suggests that when you have too much external reward sorry, the mic is doing something weird right now. When you have too much external reward for something that you were originally getting a lot of internal reward, so this is like extrinsic and intrinsic reward, you start to not enjoy it as much, because this is like linked to another whole psych jargon thing called social perception theory, where like you figure out what you like by observing your own behavior. So if you're like, oh, I'm eating ice cream every week, then you'll probably be like, yeah, I like ice cream. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of the same idea, where like if you're observing yourself and you're like, okay, I eat ice cream every week because someone pays me $20 to do it, then you're like, do I like ice cream, or am I doing it because I'm being paid $20 to eat ice cream every day? And so I think it's really interesting you like mentioning having to like remember the play part and remembering like the intrinsic reward, because I think it's really important to be reminding yourself like, this is like me. It's not like someone who's like, go play drums and like, period. Like, and I think especially since you guys both have like this really long history with it before becoming professional, I wonder, I mean, obviously we can't know because we don't have like the condition where you guys just were forced to play drums without knowing, but like, I mean, I guess you were kind of forced with your shed story, but I mean, the fact that you like discovered and progressively got into is really cool. But yeah, do you ever feel like you're like reminding yourself like, hey, like, or do you think that you're just like, it's so into you that doesn't really come up?
you know, I do find myself reminding that part in the low seasons. And maybe this comes into the whole seasonal depression thing, but they all kind of come at the same time. You know, like January to March is a little harder in the creative space, in the gigging life, to work. So, you know, you're not getting a lot of work. You have more time to practice, but also you're really poor and you're also depressed because there's no sun outside and it's winter. That's when it all comes in, and you have to remember, like, oh yeah, like, there are things I love about this that I should, like, lean towards, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's when I take the time to kind of learn music that has nothing to do with what I play professionally, and it's more, like, dumb and big-brained, you know? Just, like, stuff that's just for the drummers or just for, like, crazy jazz musicians or whatever.
Yeah, just, like, your creative moment.
Yeah.
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 I mean, totally agree. And I find also, like, this might be, maybe it's just a me thing, but I find even when things kind of stink, like, even if, like, you're on a gig and it kind of stinks, I still like playing drums. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, you were saying, like, the ice cream thing, like, you know, I'm doing this because I have to, because I'm getting paid to do it. But I think the money's not that good. So it's like, we're kind of doing this because we want to. Because Shayne and I could have become lawyers or doctors.
Well, you could have.
I mean, you
speak for yourself, dude.
I mean, we could have become anything.
Yeah.
But we decided to become drummers, and, you know, musicians often are in the lower income bracket, but we don't do it for the money. We do it for the love. So yeah, that's my piece of optimism.
I find that's kind of a thing that ends up happening is when you become professionals, like Paulo and I, people who are not in the professional space yet or entirely like full-time professionals, they get kind of afraid to ask you to work with them. Or they kind of get afraid to ask you for lessons, and you kind of have to be like, hey, like, you know, we do this because we love it. You know, like I've done more free gigs in my life than I've done paid gigs in my life, you know, and I've done more free things. So yeah, it does start from a base of love, for sure. You know, just to answer your question, we do have to remind ourselves sometimes in the professional setting, but it does come from a place of love. And I would still play drums if I didn't make money from it.
You know, I heard something from a musician, Samuel Blais. I was on a gig with him, and he said to me, you know, I'm not paid to play music. I'm paid to get in my car, you know, load my things in my car, show up to the gig, set up my things, you know, set up all the mics, do everything. The music part's free, and then I also charge to tear down, and I charge to go back home.
Yeah.
So it's like, playing music, that part is like the
rewarding part.
Yeah, that's the part you're going for. But it's everything else that I charge for.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a cool way to, like, frame it.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
And you know what else you charge for? I know that you're both drum teachers and you provide lessons to people. How is that? Like, did you always know that you wanted to become a drum teacher? What's so special or fun or not fun about being a drum teacher? Fun fact, guys. Shayne is my drum teacher.
Fun fact, Michelle is
the
one
best.
of my best drum students.
Stellar student.
Leave that on the digital footprint. Thank you.
Actually, she said she's going to perform later with us.
Nope.
No?
Yeah.
Well,
No.
Setting up a third kit, maybe?
I think so. That'd be,
No.
we could play, I don't know,
We could play the most basic beat ever.
AC/DC.
Rock With You. We could play Oh Honey or something. Anyways, so when it comes to teaching, I think it's, for a lot of people, it's kind of your entry point into the professional musician life, right? It's the easiest, I don't want to say easiest, but it is kind of the most direct way to get paid for doing music when you're proficient enough to kind of just teach people. And I find that in teaching, I'm also learning constantly. You can only teach what you really know. So as a...
So wise.
Thanks. Wow.
So sending me back to, like, our talk with Dr. Jens.
You can only teach when you really know.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry, we interrupted you.
No, it's so cool. But yeah, so for me, I started teaching when I was 17. Yeah, I was 17. And it's something I actually, like, wrestle with, because on one side of things, I love I work a lot with kids. I've always worked with kids my whole life, and I love that side of it. I've had the same students for at least 4 years. Like all of my kids I've had for at least 4 years. Some of them for 10 years. Some of them I had the whole time I've been teaching. I've seen kids go from elementary school through high school into Cégep, and some of them from the end of elementary school into university now. Some of those kids are in the music scene that I've taught, and some of them come to Grove, you know, and it's kind of it's a weird thing. And I find that every year I'm like kind of in this thing of like, oh, do I really want to go back to teaching? Because I love playing. And then I do the first lesson and I see these, I get to talk to my students and catch up with them, and that's what really makes me go back. It's the connection part. I could do without teaching 24 karat magic 7 times a week, you know, like I could go without playing Superstition all the time, but it's really like just to sit down with these kids and like kind of be like, you know, to show them what's possible in life. Because I've never had a drum teacher growing up. I was always learning on YouTube and stuff. I never actually knew any professional musicians until I got to Vanier. So just to be that for them and to show them like you could do this thing if you want to have fun and be like not super poor but a little broke, you know?
A little poor.
A little poor. But yeah, so I have this love-hate relationship with teaching, and it mostly starts with loving the connection I make with people, you know?
Yeah, I think in general music, sorry, let me bring the mic closer. Yeah, in general I feel like music like brings so much community. So not only do you have like the community within the music world, but you're getting to like include just people in general into your music when you play it for them, when you teach them. And yeah, I think that's why music is universal. I mean, like like everyone has some sort of music. And yeah, Paulo, do you have anything to add on like how you feel about the teaching part?
Yeah, of course. So I started teaching as a necessity, like to make extra dough on the side, and I was about the same age as Shayne, like 18, 19 years old when I started. And what kind of keeps me doing it and not just getting a side job is like you have that 1 or 2 students a day when you go to like a school and teach, and they show up and they've done extra work and they've shown that they love being there, and like you give them homework, they come back, they do it like 3 times as much as you expect. So like if you learn this song, I learned that and I learned 2 other songs, and like you see the love that you used to have when you see yourself in them, and that kind of pushes me to teach more, because you know, kind of like music, often teaching could be like risky. It's not always for sure. A lot of teaching gigs are like if the person doesn't show up, you don't get money for that. So it's like it's also a love thing. And then like Shayne said, like a few years down the line, you see those people grow into like adults, and they're using what you've taught them to live their life and to go forward, and that's beautiful. It's moving. It's inspiring.
Yeah, it's super interesting when you watch your own students at like a music school get into music school and then become teachers at the music school that you were teaching at.
That's
You're like,
crazy.
I'm like a music school grandfather
Yeah.
at WEMA and stuff. Like, it's so I have 2 students that are teachers now.
It's crazy. And what I find also wild, I'm getting a lot of adult students hit me up, and some that are like very competent drummers. And they're like, hey, like I just want to get your opinion on this thing because I've seen you do this and I want to look into that. And that's like, if anything, that's humbling.
Yeah.
Because it's like to have people who are your peers want to learn from you. I mean, teaching kids is one thing, but then teaching your peers is like, wow, what am I going to teach them?
Yeah.
And it's also like, it's like you're putting energy back into the scene when you transfer information like that. Montreal's really, really cool because I find people are always asking questions and giving good answers. Whereas a lot of other cities like New York, like you'll ask someone a question and they'll kind of brush you off because they're trying not to give away their secrets or whatever.
Yeah.
In this city, it's like, it's very communal, it's very helping, it's very caring, and it's like a teaching city. And like you'll go see a concert, and if you want to talk to someone on stage who just played an amazing show, you can. You grab a beer with them or whatever after the show, and they'll tell you everything you want to know. It's just, it's giving. So when you're doing that, when you're giving, it's very beautiful, it's very special.
Yeah, yeah. I do love the Montreal kind of community thing. We do have a good one. I find that even in like jam sessions and whatnot, you're kind of in this room where like there's people who've never played a gig in their life playing on a stage with someone who's toured or has a Grammy or like is like a jazz fest artist, and then after you get to kind of just talk about like their experiences. I always feel weird about doing that because I try not to come off as too preachy, but I think they appreciate it, and I would also appreciate it if someone were to do that for me back in the day when I was going to jam sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But
and that's how you learn. That's how you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been there. Like we'd go to Cypher. We'd be like 17, 18 years old going to Cypher back in the day, and there'd be like Anomaly there.
Yeah.
And he's killing it right now, right? And then you have like all these monsters who play with some of the biggest Canadian touring artists who are endorsed. Like
the first Cypher is this old jam session in Montreal before Grove was like one of the big ones. Cypher kind of started us off, and we used to all go when we were 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I went to was the Danny McKinnon going away party because he was moving to LA, and then he moved to LA and he wrote the song "Dang" with Mac Miller and Anderson .Paak, and now he's like a huge LA guitar player.
Oh my God.
And it's just like you're kind of seeing these guys up front right before they pop off. Like Anomaly's like one of the biggest artists in Canada, and now I think even at Grove we have Cedric, who's like
he's got a Grammy.
He's got a Grammy, and like
Crazy.
it's starting for him in this crazy way.
And like so many Juno artists also, like Dave Hin just won a Juno. He played guitar
True.
on a Juno thing, and like
not to flex. I mean, I was nominated for a Juno one time.
You were nominated
for one of the Wall-E things, but whatever.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Well, whatever.
That's dope. That's an achievement, dude. So it's like
Juno's like half of a Grammy, so a nom is like a quarter of a Grammy. I got a quarter of a Grammy in me
right
now.
A nom is half of a Grammy nom.
There you go. It's a quarter of a Grammy, dude.
But it's half of a Grammy nom.
Okay, well.
Okay, so to break from like the Grammy breakdown right now that we've got going on, I wanted to bring up more like the therapeutic aspect of music. Mm-hmm. So Shayne, I think you were telling me you were thinking about a master's in music therapy, if I'm not wrong.
I'm not thinking about it. I'm currently pursuing it.
So
I'm doing all my
Shayne
psych
is like
courses.
The master's in music therapy guy right now.
I mean, I'm not in the master's yet. I'm doing all my psych courses this year, and then next year I'll be going into the master's.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about like what music therapy is, maybe for all the listeners that don't know, and how you think it like?
Yeah. I find, the way I've come to understand music therapy and what I want to do with it is it could be like a therapeutic outlet for the person participating in the therapy. But my goal really is to, can I say the backstory as to why I wanted to kind of get into music therapy?
Yeah.
So Paul and I met at Vanier, but I actually didn't finish Vanier. I was kind of kicked out because I failed classical theory. And but this was in my last year, and I was kicked out of music school, and I felt not valid. I felt like not a musician anymore. I was like, what is this? I'm not in music school, and I didn't know how to go about life anymore because I couldn't constantly practice. And the one other thing I've ever done in my life is I've always worked with special needs kids. So I ended up getting this job at this elementary school for special needs kids, and I worked there for about 2 years, and it was really great. And I remember I used to play, they had like music therapy there, and there was a music therapist, and I used to play piano for the kids most mornings. And the kids would kind of just sit around while they were eating their food, and I would just like play piano, and they really enjoyed it. The music therapist came into the room once and saw me doing it, and they kind of were suggested the whole music therapy thing, and they wrote me this letter to Concordia. They're like, please take him, because I didn't finish Stasia. High school grades weren't necessarily the best. So luckily enough for me, I had this letter, and I knew the head of the music department at Concordia, so I was able to kind of just slide in there.
Nepotism right there.
So, to me, I find music therapy, it's not just music, but music therapy was also, when working with special needs kids, was also sort of a reward and a reinforcement for other therapies they were doing, like occupational therapy or whatnot, even speech therapy, where it's like you're working with other therapists in other fields and using music as one of the exercises, one of the ways to get the other therapies to work. So yeah, my long-term goal is to eventually just become a music therapist for special needs kids. And I think with the drums, it works out pretty well.
Yeah.
But a lot of music therapists tend to be singers,
Mm-hmm.
and they also play like piano and guitar. I can't sing, something I gotta kind of get into, I think. I don't know what I'm gonna do about it, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there, you know?
That's
Yeah.
that's interesting that you're saying this about special needs kids. I have a brother who's younger than me. He's autistic, and he's like, he can't be home alone autistic, and he went to Summit School.
Yeah.
And the music class there and the music therapist that would come in would have such an impact on them. That's like they talk about one event the whole week, and you'd be there for like 10 minutes and maybe sometimes like you're groggy, sometimes you're tired, and maybe you're not really sure if the kids are liking it, but then they go home and they're just talking about it the whole time, and it changes their day.
It matters. What really did it for me was there was one of my students in one of the classrooms I was working in. He was 7 or 8, and he couldn't walk, and he couldn't talk or eat by himself. But the biggest thing is he couldn't walk, and it wasn't because he couldn't walk out of any sort of disability that he had towards that. It was more because he was afraid of like walking, like actually.
Interesting.
And I remember, so his legs didn't atrophy, I would have to be the one. I'd hold his hands and we'd walk around the hallways. And one day, one way to encourage him is I would play these like Sesame Street, like Bruno Mars collab videos they had. And one day, we're like walking up and down the hall, and we get to the end of the hall, and there's like this window, and I put like he's like standing on the window. I put his hands there, and he kind of stands by himself. And I went to get water, but I had the phone with me, still playing the Sesame thing, and he like turned to me, and he like stepped towards me to get the phone, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? So what I would do is for the next few days, next few weeks even, I would walk with him to the end of the hall, and I would put the phone on the windowsill, and I would just like see if he would start taking steps. And eventually he was actually walking towards the phone, and it got to the point where he was able to, after like months of doing it, he was able to walk up and down the hall. And I remember I went back to the...
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that was
dude.
kind of like a super rewarding thing for me. I was like, I watched this kid learn how to walk because of this thing,
Yeah.
this love for music that he had. And I remember going back to the special needs school to sub once, like 6 months after I left when I was in Concordia, and this kid was fully just walking everywhere. And it was really nice to see, because when I was there, he couldn't, So, yeah. Shout out music therapy.
That's beautiful, man.
There's
That's
like a
beautiful.
tear falling down everyone's.
Man, that's so sweet, man. That's cool.
Yeah. Music therapy is really important to me.
Yeah.
And obviously, in my mind, like, I know I'm going to be a touring millionaire drummer. But even with that, I really do plan on, like, opening a therapy center and getting into this work as soon as I can, almost. It's a little bit difficult to do the therapy thing when you're, like, an active musician, because I spend the summers out of town, and no one wants a therapist who's not going to be present for 4 months out of the year.
So real.
So I really have to decide how and when I'm going to kind of go into this thing. But yeah, I think music therapy is incredibly important. I think art therapy in general is incredibly important. And it's one of those things that people should really look into.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Maïa and I were talking about this yesterday. We went to Pilates together, so like we're really fit, diva defrost for the summer. And in the car ride home, we were talking about how it's really important to have like a holistic, well-rounded form of therapy. So like you have other ways to like supplement the maybe like more traditional forms of therapy that you're getting, because a lot of the times there's like treatment-resistant depression, and there's like a lot of more complex mood disorders and other like neurodevelopmental disorders that make it really hard to implement traditional forms of therapy or like work with traditional forms of therapy. And we always talk about therapy as an intervention versus prevention in like a lot of our psych classes, and I think it's really important to have prevention methods in our everyday lives so that we're not like crashing out and then being like, oh, I actually need therapy. Like music or art and creativity and like creative like spheres are a great way of adding like a protective layer to your mental health, where you're like, okay, if something goes wrong, like it's going to affect me less because I've been working on my mental health in other ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do you use music as something like protective towards your emotions, or like help you deal with things that come up in your life, like life stress or whatever?
Well, music, like, music has really helped me through like relationship breakups. Because I find music doesn't judge you, and I mean, at least the way I see it, and like especially when you dive into a lot of music where you're creating, it's like there's no judgment there. It's just pure, genuine stuff like we were talking about earlier. And I like using music as like a meditation, and like sometimes I'll sit there, I'll practice really, really slow, and I'll think about the space between the notes I'm playing, which is a sort of meditation. You put like a timer for 15 minutes, and it's like at the end of it, you're like, you've been meditating. And for me, that's really, really helped me. I love connecting with people, and I know Shayne loves that too. So it's like when you're down in the dumps, or like when things aren't going well, and you have a gig that week, and you go out there and people are happy to see the product that you're producing, and it's like people are smiling and dancing, that's like, for me, that's my therapy, just like helping other people have a good, because they probably had a hard day at work or whatever, so seeing them not think about that translates to me. That really helps me.
Yeah, I mean, same. I find when I'm heartbroken, I kind of just make trap beats, but
Oh, yeah.
I like produce things, but no, I also, drumming is this weird kind of catharsis. Just to hop off what you were kind of saying at the end with the people coming to see you and they might have had a bad day, you know, it's to Paulo and I, like, we play every day. We see ourselves play all the time, and to a lot of people in the audiences that we play in, it's their first and maybe only time they'll ever see us kind of do the thing. So we have to remember that we can't allow, like, of course this is like our comfort zone, and I find that this is the one thing that brings me peace, but I can't let the outside kind of drive my sound and how I'm playing or my attitude on stage. Like, I find that when I'm on stage, I still have to be that, like, I have to put on a show, you know? And it's kind of really, it's easier to do because, back to how I was saying, it's like a weird catharsis. I find that when I'm drumming, when I'm practicing, or you're like meditating, as Paulo said, in a way, all those sort of negative feelings from off the drum kit kind of just, they kind of disappear, and because like this is where I'm at now, this is what I'm doing. And, this also translates to when I don't really get nervous for shows anymore. But
it depends. It's like sometimes if the show's really, really hard, maybe nervous is to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
But like, you mean for you, like every time you play Grove, you probably don't feel nervous at all.
No,
ever.
of course.
And probably when you play with Wally, you don't feel that anymore either.
No, I rarely, you're right, like once in a while, but I have this weird thing where I don't feel nervous for shows and I don't feel excited for shows. Like, this is what's happening and this is where I'm at, you know? Like, this is like, I sit down and I just know this is what's going to happen. So in this sort of like therapeutic, cathartic way, if I'm in a part of my life where I'm going through heartbreak or like struggle or like, you know, sadness or anger or whatever, I find that I sit down at the drums and those things escape me for a brief moment. I don't think about them. I just think about this and now and the sound I'm playing, and
because we love it.
We love it.
We love it, and like the fact that we're doing it and creating, like it's like overriding almost everything else we're feeling.
Exactly.
And maybe if we're feeling distress, it's even more powerful because relative to that, it's like when you're lower, it's such a high thing. It's such like a crazy like contrast that it's almost
Bounces
more
out.
powerful. It's almost more powerful when you're in distress.
Yeah, for sure. It's way more powerful. So, you know, I've always struggled with that in sort of like even relationships I've had, because for me, my partners and my connections aren't that much of a, like, I don't rely on them for emotional stimulation. I'm like, I am baseline happy, you know, with this. Like, I am baseline at peace with this.
Yeah.
And everything else, all the other connections I have in my life are very much like cherry on top of this.
You're like in a flow. You're in a flow state
In a
when
flow
you play,
state,
and
yeah.
I think I think, oops, sorry guys, I'm making a weird sound with the mic again. But I think we're getting to the end of our show, and so I think that just kind of as a closing statement, if you've been listening to Panacea, you know we like to end it on a little positive note of hope. And so yeah, I wanted to like hear what your parting words would be before you play some more music for us.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is to remember to kind of love yourself, love others. Don't take yourself too seriously, and give yourself some grace. Allow yourself to make mistakes. I feel like you don't always have to be in this self-improvement mode. It's okay to just exist in the level in which you exist right now for as long as you want. Yeah.
Unless
And
you're a terrible person.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if anyone heard what Michelle said.
But also part of my parting note, I just want to say thank you so much, Maïa and Michelle, for having us. It's like
Yeah, of course.
so cool to be here.
And
you know?
it's a very interesting opportunity. Like, when would you have 2 full drum sets set up in such a small studio and like
honestly a terrible
like,
idea.
Like the worst idea.
If you want to see the setup, you can go on Panacea's Instagram and
yeah, we'll have some
we'll
pictures
have some
and videos.
fun content for you guys.
Yeah, I think what I would like people to leave with is, if you find something that makes you happy that doesn't hurt anyone else, I think you should try to pursue that. I mean, of course, life has its restrictions and like life throws curveballs, but we only do get one life. And I find it's very important to try to make the best of it, and to remember that everyone's life is meaningful and everything, like everyone means something. Do things that make you happy, create, be courageous and try new things, support live music, because arts in modern cities are sort of dwindling, and as we know, rents are getting higher. So support the scenes, be a part of the scene, join the community, hop in, enjoy, have fun,
Hop in and lock in. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's right.
Thank you, Paulo and Max, who's Max?
That's my middle name.
Sorry.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Paulo and Shayne, for coming. Yeah, beautiful words from people who are clearly doing what they love and love what they do. Listen to musicians from Montreal. Listen to local music. Support live music. Go to Grove, Turbo House every Wednesday. GROWVEMTL on Instagram. Paulo Max Riccardo on Instagram. PAULOMAXRICCARDO.
Killed it.
And Shayne on drums. SHAYNEONDRUMS.
Killed it.
Yes, thank you for listening. This was Panacea. It's actually April 15th, but we're going to be airing in 2 weeks on the 24th at 2 p.m. But we're here every last Thursday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Thursdays. So, thanks for being here.
And again. 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 And again.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, man. Just going through all the samples, that's fun.
Awesome.
Is that okay?
Is that okay?
Yeah,
You go
that's
more
great.
early.
Yeah,
Actually, none of that was usable.
we will need to take again. No, it was great.